After setting down the documents, I observed the woman. She was not as pretty as I was and could only be considered pleasant on the eye. She had a slim figure, though. It was highly likely that she had never given birth before. She lacked experience in life, but she had received a good education, at least, because when she mentioned that she was the mistress, she looked shifty, as if she were feeling awkward. "Do you have any good plans for my situation, Miss Clark? My boyfriend mentioned that it's best for his wife to ask for a divorce on her own. After all, they've been together for a long time, so it's embarrassing for him to ask for one." She pursed her lips and put on a bashful smile. If it were not for the fact that I was certain that she had not recognized me, I would have thought that she was challenging me. I put on a professional smile. "Miss Candor, how long have you been with your boyfriend?" Claudia Zander was stunned. She had not managed to follow my line of thinking. "What?" I spoke louder as I explained. "Before offering you any plans, I need to know all the details about how you got together." Understanding bloomed on Claudia's face, and she spoke with a voice as soft as a dove's. With every sentence she uttered, my smile dimmed a little more. "I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years. We first met at a hospital. Someone from his family needed a surgery that day, and I think things were pretty bad for them. He was smoking in the stairwell because he was scared. I was passing by, and I offered him some words of comfort." She smiled bashfully as she blushed. "That's how we got to know each other. In less than a week, he confessed to me." As I listened to Claudia reminiscing about her sweet first meeting, my heart ached. "Is today the date you met each other 3 years ago?" "Yes. How did you know?" Claudia's eyes flew wide open in disbelief. I kept my smile, though it trembled. Of course I knew about the date, because 3 years ago I gave birth to our first child in the hospital. Considering the time, I should have been lying on the operating table when they met. I had a difficult birth, and I had to switch to a C-section, during which I fainted 3 times. The memories of the past turned into a poison, threatening to consume me. I sucked in a deep breath before asking my next question. "Do you know that he has a daughter? She's 3 years old and has just enrolled in kindergarten." "I know, but that doesn't matter." The timid look on Claudia's face was replaced by nonchalance. "He promised me that once he divorces his wife, I can be the girl's stepmother. She's still young and hasn't really recognized who her mother really is yet. As time passes, she should be fine with whoever is her mother. Don't you think so, Miss Clark?" I clenched the document so tightly that my knuckles turned white, but I nodded. "Yes, you're right," I said in a neutral voice. Unfortunately for Claudia, she was not going to get that chance. Once Claudia got the response she wanted, she opened up her whole heart to me and started bragging. Also, he showed me a photo of his wife before. She has a long scar on her stomach. It's so ugly. He told me that he feels so sick that he wants to puke whenever he sees that scar on his wife's stomach. Then, Claudia suddenly asked, "What on earth is on that woman's mind, Miss Clark? Her stomach is so ugly and she's still clinging to my boyfriend. Is it because she lacks love?" She laughed, unable to help herself. I laughed too, though my gaze was as cold as ice. "His wife probably couldn't guess that he thought her stomach was ugly." Claudia raised an eyebrow and said firmly, "No way, Matthew is disgusted with her. Unless she's an idiot, there's no way she can't tell. You have no idea, but he's really passionate when he holds me. He tells me it's because he has no interest in that ugly old hag at home, and he's frustrated. If it were you, wouldn't you find it strange if your husband didn't sleep with you for 3 years?" "I would, yes," I answered frankly, but my gaze was numb as I stared at the wedding ring that I had been wearing for 4 years. Matthew and I came from families of different social classes, but we had been together for 8 years, from high school to marriage. Whenever I got sick, he would be anxious and run out of the school dorms to get medicine for me. Whenever I got sad, he would run a few blocks away to buy the candy I loved to make me laugh. When I was pregnant, up to the moment I gave birth, he never skipped a prenatal checkup with me. Whenever he got home, he would first give my daughter and me a hug and say that we were the people he loved the most. When we did not become physically intimate over the past 2 years, he only said, "Tina, you suffered greatly when you gave birth. I don't want you to go through that again." I thought that it was normal for marriages to turn platonic as time passed. I never expected to learn that Matthew was not touching me because he was not interested in physical intimacy anymore, but rather because he was having his fill with another woman. A chill crawled down my spine, and I asked my final question. What are his demands for divorce? Does he just want his wife to ask for a divorce? Claudia shook her head. Of course not. You can't let the wife know that my boyfriend cheated on her either. You don't know this, but my boyfriend married into her family. He worked hard to build his own business, though. Life has been really difficult for him. If his wife learns that he cheated on her, she won't let him leave. I clenched my fingers but said nothing. Worried, Claudia reminded me to not let myself learn that my own husband had cheated on me with the very woman sitting in front of me. I know that you're the best breakup specialist in Oceanville. I'll leave my boyfriend's divorce in your hands. Leave it to me, I promised with a smile. Once she was gone, I immediately called my childhood friend. Send me your best private investigator and lawyer. I want to know everything that Matthew has done over the past 3 years. Also, tell my father that Matthew has cheated on me. Have him rescind all the investments over the past years. Since he said that he became successful through his own efforts, I want to see what he's left after we take away all the help we gave him. My childhood friend was incredibly efficient, as expected of my best business partner. In just half a day, he tossed a 128-gigabyte pen drive on my desk. Take a look, it's all in there. I inserted the pen drive and opened the folder. The first video seemed to have been taken in some high-end restaurant. Matthew was dressed in a black suit and looked all prim and proper as he gave Claudia a huge bunch of Neptune roses. 3 months ago, on my birthday, Matthew had told me that he had to work overtime and only gave me a cheap, locally grown rose bought from a roadside stall for $5. The second video was from the security camera of a shopping mall. Matthew was holding Claudia's waist as they went on a spree in luxury stores. Bags of ready-to-wear clothes, accessories, and jewelry piled up around Claudia's feet, and they acted so sweetly with each other that it made me sick. When they paid, the plushy keychain the shopping assistant gave them as a gift became the birthday gift Matthew gave our daughter. With a stony expression, I clicked off the video and opened a document. It showed Matthew's bank transaction records over the past 3 years. He had sent large sums of money frequently to a few accounts, and the total made my heart go numb. All the money ended in a personal account ending with 7761. Who was the owner? Claudia, of course. This whole time, he had been quietly transferring money to Claudia in the name of paying her for her services. Did he really think I would not notice him using such cheap tricks? The disappointment in my heart bordered on spilling out when I opened another document. It was the chat log between Claudia and my daughter's kindergarten teacher. In the screenshot, Claudia kept asking about Dulcie, my daughter, in the name of being Dulcie's mother. She asked about whether Dulcie was eating and sleeping properly. She had even made an appointment to attend the next parent-teacher meeting with Matthew as Dulcie's parents. I clenched my mouth tightly, not because I was sad, but because nothing could have prepared me for the audacity of Matthew bringing his affair partner to Dulcie. When Dulcie was born, he had repeatedly gotten up at night to feed her milk and coax her to sleep. He had even promised me that no matter what, she would be our beloved daughter. I still felt some kind of relief when Claudia said that she wanted custody rights over Dulcie. It meant that, at least, Matthew still cared about Dulcie and would not hurt her even if we got divorced. Still, this had torn a large hole in my chest, and it was filling my heart with cold chills. I almost took out my phone to warn him to stay away from Dulcie, but I received a message from Claudia before I could do it. She had sent a selfie over for me as a reference. Miss Clark, please take a look and see whether my clothes are all right. My boyfriend is bringing his daughter and me to meet his parents, and I'm really nervous. At the same time, Matthew sent me a message. Honey, my parents miss Dulcie. I'm going to bring her to have dinner with my parents tonight. You're busy, so I bought you a movie ticket. watch a movie tonight to relax." He then showed me a photo of Dulcie coming out of the kindergarten. When I saw Dulcie's naive smile, I laughed. The movie was nowhere near as interesting as the family dinner. Since they were going to meet my in-laws, as Matthew's wife, I needed to see whether Claudia was a good fit. After hanging up, I immediately drove to my in-laws' place. On the way back, I kept receiving messages from Matthew. "Have you reached the movie theater? I think there's an event at the shopping mall where the movie theater is today. Did you see it?" He was testing me, but I did not panic. I searched for the shopping mall and sent him a screenshot. "I saw it. It's pretty lively." I was just humoring him, and Matthew relaxed. "All right, honey, have fun. I love you." It was his usual sweet nothings, but I found it disgusting and put my phone away. I did not reply to him anymore. Once I got out of the car, I put on a cap and mask before approaching my in-laws' place. The family dinner had not started yet, but Matthew's family and friends had all arrived. His mother was smiling as she busied herself with socializing. She was so attentive and considerate. Truly, she was a flawlessly good mother-in-law. It reminded me of the time before I married Matthew. She had been like that too. I was born frail, so she visited farms in the countryside to make chickens to make soup for me every day. Since I couldn't stand the cold, she knitted scarves and made slippers for me. She treated me like her own daughter. She even remembered the fact that my father had a weak stomach, so she had someone buy herbs from the countryside, made herbal soup, and sent it to my family. Even my father, a seasoned veteran of the business world, had said, "The Grants are good, honest folk. I'll feel at ease if you marry Matthew." However, when my mother-in-law saw Matthew walk in with a beaming Claudia, she was the first to run over to receive them. "You must be Claudia. You're so pretty. I'm sure you're a good giddle. Matthew, you have to treat her right. Don't mistreat her." My usually stern father-in-law set down his newspaper and patted Matthew's shoulder with a pleased look on his face. "You have good taste. It's clear that she's very fertile. We do need a woman who can give birth to a son in the family." It was at this moment that I understood. They hated me for having given birth to a daughter. They wanted someone to pass down the family name. Meanwhile, Claudia seemed really proud of herself. In a seemingly unintended fashion, she jutted out her belly and said delicately, "Don't worry. Matthew has brought me to the hospital to check. I'm perfectly fine and can definitely give birth to a son." "That's great!" My in-laws smiled and wanted to give Claudia gifts. They also forgot about Dulcie, since she was apparently an eyesore. Matthew's other relatives surrounded them and kept praising them. Amid the ruckus, I could hear one of Matthew's uncles clapping his hands. He was the one who had borrowed more than $2 million from us. He said, "You're amazing, Matthew. This is what a man of the Grants should be like." One of Matthew's aunts clapped while wiping her tears away. "I had used my connections to send her daughter to study abroad. This is great. I like Claudia, you know? She seems down to earth." There was also Matthew's cousin, Nick. He had multiple failed businesses, and I was the one who had to keep using my family's resources to help him secure connections. He was so excited that he stood up and toasted Matthew. "Matthew, Claudia, I hope you two are happy forever and have children soon." I'd helped all of them before. They had benefited from me and owed me. But at this very moment, no one remembered that I existed. None of them mentioned my name. Piper, Matthew's aunt, wiped away her tears and grabbed Dulcie before pushing her in front of Claudia. She said, "Stop daydreaming. Call her Mommy." That's right. Olivia, Matthew's mother, finally remembered Dulcie and tried to shove Dulcie into Claudia's arms. "Dulcie, call Claudia your mother." Dulcie stared at Matthew's family in panic and shook her head rapidly. "I don't want to. She's not my mother. My mother is Tina Clark. Grandma, I want my real mother. Can't you ask Mommy to pick me up?" She had naively thought that Olivia would help her if she asked, but Olivia's face turned cold as she pinched Dulcie's ear instead. "What on earth are you saying? Claudia is your mother. Say it." Patrick, Matthew's father, glared at Dulcie in disgust and did not bother hiding his displeasure. "Look at your daughter, Matthew. She has no manners at all." Claudia bit down on her lip and collapsed into Matthew's arms, as if she could not stand straight. She looked at him, hurt. "Matthew, does Dulcie not like me?" His heart ached for her, and Matthew hugged her and comforted her. "No, she's still young and immature. Once we get married, you can make her do whatever you ask. I won't interfere." When I saw this, I opened the door, unable to stop myself anymore. As I watched their expressions drop, I put on a fake smile. "Isn't this a family dinner? Why didn't you ask me to join when I'm Matthew's wife?" Matthew appeared dumbfounded as soon as he saw me. He could not understand why I was here instead of watching a movie at the shopping mall. Instinctively, he let go of Claudia's hand. Then, with a quivering voice, he asked, "Why are you here, Tina?" This was the first time over the years that I heard such panic in his voice. He was looking everywhere but into my eyes. He had been lying to me for years, and I wondered whether he even held a shred of guilt in him. When Claudia saw me, her face turned very pale, and she could not say a single word. She had not expected to be happily bragging about her life as a mistress to her boyfriend's actual wife. I walked into my in-laws' place. The entire family lost their composure. They ducked their heads and did not dare look me in the eye either. Meanwhile, Olivia stood in a corner and looked troubled, even though she was usually on good terms with me and took great care of me. The relatives and friends who kept bad-mouthing me and praising Claudia all fell silent. The living room fell silent, and no one dared to break this temporary silence. Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass rose in the hall. It was Yvonne, Matthew's other aunt. She threw the teacup in her hands onto the floor, as if finally snapping after having tolerated offense for a long time. She pointed an accusing finger at Matthew and Claudia before yelling, "You cheating pieces of trash! You're betraying Tina by doing this." No one had expected her to suddenly lose her temper. That was why no one stopped her. But Yvonne did not seem to be content with that. She then pointed at those hypocritical relatives as her eyes burned with rage. "And you ungrateful jerks! I've long since lost my patience with all the things you've been saying. You can't ignore how much Tina has helped us over the years. Is your conscience dead?" Her insults were horrible, and some of them soon got done with listening to her insulting them. The first to take a step forward was Piper, the one who had praised Claudia to the high heavens just now. "How could you say that? Since Tina married Matthew, she's one of us, even if she's dead. It's only right for her to help us. You have no right to accuse us of exploiting her. Besides, when Matthew's company was in trouble, she helped because she's Matthew's wife. She's the one who went to her parents to ask for money and help. We didn't force her to do it. If she hadn't insisted on sticking to Matthew like glue and refusing to divorce, things wouldn't have ended this way." Once Piper had finished speaking, Nick stepped forward as well. "That's right. She's from a rich family, so she should understand these social rules even more than we do. Claudia is pregnant with Matthew's child now. What's with her pretending not to know what happened? She's the useless one for not giving birth to a son. Shouldn't she step aside to let someone else do it? Honestly, Tina, you should be content. Matthew has a bleeding heart. If I were him, I wouldn't have tolerated my wife for not giving birth to a son for 3 years. I would have chased her out a long time ago." Yvonne was so angry about what they had said that she lost her voice. She could not even be bothered to continue arguing with these people. After giving me a pitying look, she stormed off. As for me, after hearing those shameless words, I laughed and turned to Matthew, who had stayed silent all this while. "Matthew, since your family knows I'm your wife, who's that broad beside you?" When Matthew saw that I was not showing him any respect, his face turned red, then pale. He did not dare refute his relatives, nor did he have the courage to refute mine. That was why he could only stew in anger and not say anything. He could only stand with his hands hanging by his sides like a child who had done wrong. A long time passed and no one said a thing. In the end, it was Olivia who spoke up. She cast aside her protective, loving attitude toward Claudia and came over to hold my hand as she said apologetically, "Tina, I was wrong. I shouldn't have asked Matthew to hide this from you. But Claudia is already pregnant with Matthew's child, and we can't just not accept her. Matthew's child is also Dulcie's brother. So for Dulcie's sake, can't you accept Claudia and forgive Matthew?" As I listened to Olivia trying to guilt-trip me and remembered all the fake kindness she had shown to me, I found my stomach could only churn in disgust. Before I could tear her hypocrisy apart, Claudia suddenly cried out before clutching at her stomach tightly and sliding to the ground. Her face frowned painfully. Matthew, my stomach, it hurts." No one knew what happened. They only thought that Claudia looked really pitiful. Matthew's heart ached for her, and all his attention went to her. He completely ignored me. With great pity, he hugged Claudia and glared at me. "Tina, that's about enough. We've been tolerating you all this while for old time's sake, but if anything happens to Claudia's baby, I won't forgive you." This was the first time he spoke to me with such aggressive words. Even when we shared the same bed and were no longer physically intimate with each other over the past 3 years, he still treated me gently and cared for me. Of course, that was due to him being a great actor. As I stared at my own husband speaking to me harshly for another woman, I found myself not feeling anything. From the moment Claudia walked into my office and said those things to me, my heart had already died. Watching them flirt right in front of me even became sort of hilarious. I smirked and said calmly, "You call this tiny matter crossing the line? Matthew, compared to the dirty things you did to me, I don't think I've done anything horrible at all. But since you've already insulted me, I'd be letting you down by not retaliating." Then, as everyone watched, I turned on the projector in the living room with familiar ease. I inserted the pen drive my childhood friend gave me into the projector, grabbed the remote, and played it. Everyone turned silent as the videos played on the screen. The previously high and mighty angry group could not say a single word when they saw what was displayed on the screen. It was proof of Matthew and Claudia cheating on me over the past 3 years, along with records of him transferring assets away in order to prepare for our divorce. Over the past few years, my parents had lent him money, in my name. All my family's help and investments for his company were presently displayed right in front of his face, though I did not think that he was reading seriously. Matthew's face turned pale. He refused to accept the truth, but it was right there, and he had no way of defending himself.
"Jay, don't believe this. These are all fake. You made them up to compromise me." He suddenly shoved Claudia away to charge at me and grabbed the remote. Then, as if he had gone mad, he yanked off the pen drive from the projector before throwing both devices on the floor and stomping on them. "These are all fake. Don't believe in it." As I stared at the crushed pieces on the floor, I said coldly, "You can destroy the remote and pen drive all you want. I have plenty of copies. Besides, do you really think that these are the only things I found?" "What else did you find?" Matthew asked with a quivering voice. When I remembered how he had let Claudia attend various events as Dulcie's mother and involved my daughter, I seethed in rage. At this point, there was no need for me to hide anything from him anymore. I sneered and said, "You, your uncle, and cousin owe me a lot of money over the years, and it's not just to do business, is it?" "What? What on earth are you saying? Of course we use the money to do business." I did not bother arguing with him. I just took out another pen drive and showed another video on the screen. The people it showed could not be seen clearly, but we could hear the conversation. It was happening in one of the storage rooms in Matthew's company, and he was talking with his finance department's manager. "No matter what you do, you need to get that money out. I need it for an emergency." But Mr. Grant, that's a lot of money. Won't the other shareholders complain about it? It's the company's money after all. Shouldn't we tell Tina about it and ask her for help? Forget it. This is my own problem. Just do as I said, Matthew snapped impatiently. Then the screen showed a video of Ivan and Nick, his uncle and cousin, splurging in casinos. It was followed by a record of Matthew transferring money to them. Seeing this stunned Matthew. He had thought that he had hidden his tracks perfectly, so he had not expected me to find out that he had used company funds to gamble with his family. That's impossible. This is all fake. Someone is trying to set me up. Tina, we've been married for years. You understand me the most. I wouldn't do anything like that. He fell to his knees and grabbed the hem of my pants, as if he were clinging to his last shred of hope. He hid all of his aggressiveness and murderous intent to give me a pleading look. I stared at him indifferently and watched as he slowly broke down in anguish before saying coolly, "It doesn't matter whether it's real or not. I don't care anymore. Save your words for the police." At that very moment, the door to the house flew open and a few police officers walked in. Matthew panicked and grabbed my legs. "Tina, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me this once. No matter what, we're a family. Even if you won't do this for my sake, can't you do it for Dulcie?" When he mentioned Dulcie's name, my anger boiled even more. The moment I closed my eyes, all I could think about was Claudia proclaiming herself to be Dulcie's mother. I said to him, "We're not a family. From the moment you cheated on me with Claudia, we stopped being that." The people in the living room started panicking upon seeing the police officers. Piper, however, forced a smile and said, "Officers, why are you here? This is just a family problem. My nephew and his wife are only talking about getting a divorce. Why would it be any of your concern?" The police officers only cast her a quick glance. They remained unmoved. They brought out handcuffs and put them on Matthew's, his uncle's, and his cousin's hands. "We can't just accept your testimony as sole proof that this is just a misunderstanding. We'll know once we go back to the police station and investigate this thoroughly." Then, the police officers left with these three. The sudden turn of events made Claudia faint. She could hardly bear this sight, since she had thought that she could marry into a rich family with her illegitimate baby. But everyone else was worried about Matthew being captured, so no one cared about her. Soon after I left the house, Sky, my childhood friend, sent me another document. "These are all Matthew's assets. We've applied to freeze all of his bank accounts." After a minute, he sent another text. "Take a good look, Tina." His hesitation made me instantly know that there was some dirty secret in the documents. But I no longer cared. No matter what it was, I could accept it. I read through the documents. At the end, I saw an unfamiliar account. It had more than $100 million in savings, and the account holder was Claudia. My heart sank, and I checked the date the account was made. It was right after Matthew told me that his company was in danger. He had said that he needed money to plug the shortfall and asked me to ask my parents for money. So that was how it was. It was no wonder why Matthew had acted so brazenly when he used company funds to give Yvonne and Nick to gamble. He had done this more than once. Like a clown, I had pitied him for being under so much pressure. I had gone home asking for money without asking him for further details. I wondered just how much of a gullible idiot I was in his eyes. I closed the document and called my family. From now on, dissolve all partnerships with Matthew's company. Contact all of their business partners and ask them to dissolve their partnerships as well. Tell them that it's because the company president is not a good person and a cheater. It's too risky to invest in the company. With these things done, I felt as if a burden had been removed from my shoulders. I turned on my phone and stumbled upon my home screen showing my wedding photo with Matthew. In our youth, we had exchanged grand promises and sweet nothings, but at present, nothing but hatred could be felt. Suddenly, I felt wistful. Then I saw an audio message among the documents Sky sent to me. I no longer cared about our relationship, so I ended up playing it simply out of curiosity. After going through so many things, I no longer felt anything toward Matthew or the things he did. But after listening to the conversation, my heart still sank. Claudia had already told me that Matthew hated me, and I felt past that. But when I heard how Matthew mocked and scoffed at my scar before praising Claudia's slender body, I really wanted to kill them. That was not all. They were plotting about how to deal with Dulcie after Matthew divorced me. That ugly hag still thinks that I love her. I'm only sticking around because her family's rich. Otherwise, I wouldn't have tolerated her for even a minute longer. Matthew, once I give birth, let's get married. Then we can send Tina's daughter abroad. No matter what, she's just a girl. We won't have to take care of her for too long. All right, we'll do as you say. Tell her to leave the marriage with nothing. I like her jewelry, so I want it all. You have to pass down all your money to my son, too.
All right, whatever you say. Right after I listened to the last sentence, I lost all my patience and sent all the evidence to the police. I absolutely had to make these two pay. News about the police investigating the company spread like wildfire. Matthew's company was already hanging by a thread and only avoided bankruptcy thanks to my family's help. Aside from the fact that it was under investigation, its stocks also plummeted. The bank called multiple times to demand payment. Meanwhile, he was stuck in jail and knew nothing about this. Claudia could not accept her sudden fall from grace. In her sadness, she tried to leave the country with the money and jewelry she got from Matthew, but word about her intending to leave got out, and she was intercepted at the airport. In the end, she fell down and miscarried. The relatives who had risen to wealth and power because of Matthew were dragged into this fiasco as well. Some got into debt, and those who did not quickly cut ties with Matthew. As for his parents, they could only return to the countryside and move into the dilapidated cottage that had not been maintained for years. After all, their house had been seized. I heard that his parents could not accept this and that they fell ill soon after returning to the countryside. When Patrick heard the news that Claudia had miscarried, he was in so much grief about losing his grandson that he became bedridden. As for me, I got my divorce papers ready and had someone send them to Matthew to sign in jail. Matthew refused to do it and insisted on seeing me. At the same time, word about Matthew cheating on me spread to every living person. As his affair partner, some attentive folks online soon doxed Claudia. They noticed that 3 years ago she had suddenly turned into an influencer, even though she had just graduated back then. She was even one of those influencers who flaunted her wealth. She had deceived multiple people by posing as a rich woman. She was presently being called out for owning so many things out of being a mistress. The influencers she lied to could not stomach this and went to her social media accounts to insult her. Since I had no other choice, I had to go. We stared at each other through the bars and did not know what to say. Not even half a month had passed, yet he had become much thinner and gained a lot of white hair. He looked at least 10 years older. I no longer loved him. I even hated him, so I felt nothing. In the end, he said, "Tina, I'm sorry. I know I've done wrong. Can we still go back to before?" Before? I did not know whether Matthew truly regretted his actions, and I did not know what exactly he was referring to. We stopped sleeping with each other the moment I got pregnant. There was no before between us. If he was talking about our past while we were still students, his white hair already gave him the answer. Stop being stubborn, Matthew. Things have already ended between us, and you caused it. Have you forgotten about it already? His expression changed, and his lips quivered. He could not say a single thing. After staying silent for a long time, he finally relented and signed the divorce papers. I started to leave after snatching them back, but he suddenly called out to me. "Tina." I stopped and turned around. If Claudia hadn't appeared and I hadn't cheated, would we still be together? Would you still love me? He really wanted an answer. I thought about it for some time before I asked him mockingly, "Do you really think you wouldn't have cheated if Claudia hadn't been around? Would that have saved you from being disgusted by my scar? You would have still cheated with another woman." "Even without Claudia, you would have still cheated on me with some other woman. You never, ever loved me. You only loved my wealth and my family background."
At these words, I left the visitation room and I heard Matthew's loud cries coming from behind me. Perhaps it was only at this moment that he truly regretted his actions, but it was already too late. Once Matthew was captured, the company faced increasing operation difficulties. Since he had embezzled company funds and gambled with them, he was condemned to rot in jail for a long time. But I had invested in that company too, so I could not just watch it fall to ruin because of the mistakes Matthew had made. Fortunately, all of Matthew's shares returned to my hands. I became the company's largest shareholder, and after some thinking, I decided to keep it running. When I joined the company, many people did not think I would succeed, not just because I had the public image of a rich heiress who had never been involved in company matters, but also because the company was already on the brink of bankruptcy after all the troubles it was facing. It was normal for them to not trust me. After all, I had just turned from an idle bum to a company president. Soon, though, they realized that I was not as useless as I seemed. In just a month, with the group I led, I seized the most troublesome project and allowed the company's revenue to double this quarter. The employees and directors who had doubted me had to change their impression of me. They accepted me as their leader. Since the company's business got better, more people started interviewing me too. Whenever they did an interview with me, they would always ask about my failed marriage, but I no longer cared about the pain. I presently was the president of fulfilled dreams. The past was simply the stepping stones to my success. In the afternoon, my assistant called me to tell me that the project in Europa had gone on smoothly and the project could bring us at least $50 million in revenue. I had expected this, so I said nothing else aside from telling him to follow up on this matter. Soon, I heard about Matthew's sentencing from the news channel on TV. It was a double blessing. I finally experienced what it felt like to truly put the past behind me. Those painful experiences had not defeated me. Instead, they had made my life more meaningful. I started learning how to enjoy life as well as take care of myself and the people around me. A person's career success could only truly be considered their own if they were in control of it. As for romance, there would always come a day where the illusion would shatter. I no longer treated love as the center of my life. But there were still endless possibilities and endless warmth in my life. During the evening, I went to pick up Dulcie from kindergarten. She was delighted to see me and ran out of the classroom. Perhaps it was due to her trauma, but when she stayed with me, she seldom talked about Matthew and never asked me where he was. I never told her about those things either. This was good. My life with Dulcie would just get better.